Hey, I've been sending out a bunch of listings lately, and actually, let me rephrase that. I've been sending a whole bunch of searches out lately, and there's not always a ton of listings on them, but they're going out, and I'm occasionally finding that some people are confused. And so I just want to go over the vocabulary that you're going to see on the listings. Before I do that, I just want to kind of explain where listing searches come from. So there's the big websites like Realtor, Zillow, Trulia, and even the ones that come from my website. All of those are pulling from MLS. So realtors enter everything into the MLS, and then there's a contracted number of times or time of day that those other websites can pull the data out. That creates an interesting situation because those websites are not always up to date. So you're not always going to get the information as fast as you will if you're on one of the MLS searches that I send you. There's no stipulation that you have to dump the information off. And so a lot of times people will be looking at stale listings, and stale doesn't mean that they weren't on the market. It means that maybe they're going through their contingencies or they're pending. And so for all intent purposes, we're not able to get you in to see them. The best place, that's a good place to look if you are in the beginning stages of looking for a house and you just want to get an idea of how much is out there, how often, or how fast things are selling, what are the price ranges, what do the pictures look like in the neighborhoods that I like. Okay, so that's a good place to start. Once you're ready to really rock and roll, I think it's better to get on an MLS search, because then you're going to get really fast, up-to-date listings as they go active. And you're going to have the most up-to-date information about those listings as they go through their active phase. So let me explain that a little bit. When an agent puts a listing into the MLS, they can mark it one of two ways. A lot of agents choose to mark it delayed, and that means that everything's signed, it's under contract, but it's not live yet, it's not active yet. Maybe they're still shampooing the carpets and getting the last details ready to go. They're going to go away for the weekend so that showings can take place, and so we put it in on a Wednesday, and you can see it for a few days, up to 2 weeks in advance, and then we can schedule that time typically in showing time. And then that way you can be one of the first ones in to see it. So delayed is a great thing to catch a listing at the delayed point, because you're getting in early. Or you're setting up your appointment early in the phase of the active. Okay, so now then once it hits the agreed upon listing date and it's active, now it's live in the system and I can schedule showings for that listing. So a lot of times there's different ways that gets set up, but a lot of times I'll have instructions that I can see. And so you call and say, hey, I want to see this house. And I can say, okay, I'll set it up and I'll let you know when I've got it confirmed and we'll be able to go. And that is what's happening during an active listing. Okay, so at some point that house is going to start accepting or start considering offers. And when they've accepted one, depending on what's in the offer, there's probably contingencies. And that means that could be inspection, appraisal, financing. Rarely in this market, but it still does happen, there's a buyer's sale on the back end. And so they need to sell their house before they can buy this house. That still happens, but not as often. But it's out there. Those are all the contingencies that could be happening. Okay, so once they've accepted the offer, then it's contingent, and then you'll see a C by active. And that means that they're still working through those issues, those questions, but they're typically not actively showing it any longer. And so you can't get in to see it. There's a whole other can of worms that if we wanted to talk about secondary offers, but I really think sometimes if you're really looking for a house that has been already marked contingent and you really, really that's the only house you would ever move, and you want me to get a hold of that realtor and say, hey, if something falls apart, I'm happy to get you on a call list. That is, I think, happens, and I've actually been successful with that every once in a while, but for all intent purposes, we're better off, I think, if you're really actively looking for homes, to stick to what is either in delayed or contingent, or sorry, let me say that again, delayed or active. Skip the contingent ones, except watch kind of what's going on with them. Or if they pop back up on the market, you know, okay, something happened with that. Maybe financing fell through, maybe there was an appraisal issue. And then that's sometimes a great way to jump back in on that house. So, okay. Pending, and this is one that is really tricky because it'll show up on the lists because it's a status change. And pending means that all the contingencies have been resolved and buyer and seller are just waiting for closing date. So for all intent purposes, that house is really close to being sold. And then the last one is sold. So if a house is marked sold, at that point, if you say, hey, I want to know what, 123 Main Street actually sold for, once it gets in marked sold, I can actually go in and see what it closed out at. And that's a good way if you're watching something in your neighborhood, or if there's a house you had your eye on and you wondered what it sold for, that's a great time to call me and ask me to look that one up for you. Okay, so I'm gonna make a little clip art thing so that you can kind of see these, but when you get listings from me, if you see something that says delayed, let me know if you want to see it, and we'll look in the app and see when it is actually going to pop live, and I'll get you in super early. If it says active and does not have that C, then typically following the directions in the showing notes, I can typically get you in to see it. Pretty much in this market have to move quickly. So calling me on a Monday means we're going to see it Monday or Tuesday, and we're not waiting until Saturday unless we absolutely have to, because things will move, things will leave the market and go contingent much faster than that typically. Okay. And then the other thing is that if it's active but it has that C, that means that it is working through those contingencies. They're not likely going to let us back in to see it. And so we kind of have to let those go, or kind of keep our eye on those in the wings. Okay, I hope that's helpful. I know that real estate sometimes comes with its own completely unique vocabulary, and it helps a lot to be a savvy shopper and know what all the words mean, and have the lingo down so that you can be getting ahead of it, and then letting me know when you want to see a house. Okay, I'd love to take you shopping, so give me a call and let me know if you have any other questions. I'd love to help answer them for you.